So just picture this for a second. Neon light, but it's bleeding through a fog that is so thick it literally feels like it's crushing your lungs.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like you can't see the tops of the skyscrapers, you can't even see the end of the street. You're just standing in the middle of this futuristic metropolis, but the whole city has been swallowed by this mysterious, suffocating mist.
It sounds incredibly oppressive, just, a space you do not want to be in.
Exactly. And the worst part is, somewhere inside that mist, just moving perfectly silently through the dampness, is a killer.
Right. Not just an abstract threat, but an actual entity.
Yeah, an entity they call the Leatherman. And he's hunting through this fog, specifically targeting women, leaving absolutely nothing behind but like silence and the hum of neon signs.
It gives you this absolute sinking dread just examining the concept art, honestly. You really feel the dampness.
And into this total nightmare, you have two people who are desperately searching for missing family members. You have a young woman named Elle, who is basically tearing the city apart looking for her father.
Right.
And then there's an American G.I. who is doing the exact same thing, but he's looking for his daughter. So it's two desperate people moving through the same fog, right toward the exact same horror. And the tagline for this whole agonizing descent is just 4 words: "You are made of stardust."
Which, that creates this immense, jarring dissonance. You have this grim, lethal reality of a killer in the mist, and it's paired with a sentiment that feels profoundly tender, like really cosmic.
Yeah, and that contradiction is exactly why we're here today. We're looking at Nicolas Winding Refn's highly anticipated return to cinema, a film called Her Private Hell, which is releasing on July 24th, 2026.
Finally!
I know, right? And for this deep dive, we've pulled together a massive stack of sources: production notes, early critical reviews, and all these dispatches from its totally chaotic premiere at the 79th Cannes Film Festival. Because our mission today is to figure out what on earth is happening with this movie.
It's a lot to untangle.
It really is. It's currently being described as a science fiction giallo. And I guess, first off, what does that actually mean?
Well, giallo is essentially a very specific flavor of 20th century Italian thriller.
Okay, like Dario Argento stuff.
Exactly, yeah. If you think of directors like Argento, these are films obsessed with hyper-stylized violence, creeping psychological tension, vivid, really saturated colors, and almost always a killer in black leather gloves.
That's the Leatherman.
Right. So Refn is taking that very specific, very vintage cinematic language of dread and, projecting it into a grim, high-tech future.
Which sounds amazing. But here's the bizarre contradiction we need to unpack. How does a movie utilizing that specific style earn a massive 12-minute standing ovation at Cannes while simultaneously sitting at a dismal 43% on Rotten Tomatoes? Like, what is Refn actually doing here?
Well, to decipher that critical divide and really to understand the brutal aesthetic choices of the film itself, we can't just look at the movie in a vacuum.
Right.
We have to look at where Nicolas Winding Refn has been for the last 10 years. His personal absence from the industry is like the lens we have to use to interpret the film's deep underlying themes of loss.
Because this isn't just a new project dropping on the schedule. This is a resurrection.
Absolutely.
Let's rewind the clock to establish his legacy for a second. In 2011, he directs Drive.
Oh, classic.
Right. Ryan Gosling, brooding silence, all those pulsing electronic scores, and sudden brutal violence wrapped in this gorgeous neon romanticism. For a lot of people, that movie literally defined the visual style of the 2010s.
He essentially built a brand on that stylized aggression. He followed Drive with Only God Forgives, which was operatic, violently beautiful, and intensely polarizing.
Super polarizing.
Yeah. And then in 2016, we got The Neon Demon, a horror film set in the LA modeling world that explored the ruthless consumption of beauty and youth.
Right, which completely fractured critics down the middle, but it almost instantly cemented itself as a cult classic. People were obsessed with his specific brand of provocation.
And then he just vanished. A decade of total radio silence.
Yeah, no features, no major announcements until now. So looking through the production interviews, the catalyst for this 10-year hiatus is actually pretty shocking. Refn had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
And brushing up against his own mortality like that, it forced a complete career reset. He reportedly realized he wanted to abandon provocation just for its own sake. Like, he spent a decade searching for something genuine to say, rather than just manufacturing what the industry expected from the neon violence guy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how that personal revelation brushes right up against the thematic heartbeat of her private hell.
Yeah.
Because at its core, this isn't really a movie about a killer. It is a movie about fathers and daughters. It is about intrinsic human worth in the face of profound loss.
Right.
When you look at that tagline, "You are made of stardust,"
Yeah.
that is not a piece of poetic marketing. It is a literal scientific truth about our biological composition. Like, we are forged from stellar material.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. And Refn is taking that scientific fact and weaponizing it as a profound statement about human value. It implies that you possess a worth that persists, regardless of the trauma you endure or, the literal monsters lurking in the fog around you.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where I get tripped up.
Okay.
If I have a profound brush with mortality and decide I want to make a movie about intrinsic human worth, I'm probably going to make like a quiet, heartwarming drama.
Sure.
But Refn almost dies, spends a decade soul-searching, and comes back with a movie about a supernatural serial killer stalking women in a mist.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that math work? It's like a musician known for aggressive punk rock suddenly taking a decade off to learn acoustic guitar to write a lullaby, except the lullaby is still terrifying. How does a near-death experience equate to a neon nightmare?
Because trauma isn't pretty, and the realization of your own mortality is inherently terrifying.
Okay, that's fair.
Facing death makes you realize how fragile the physical body is, how easily it can be destroyed by disease or an accident or just violence. Refn isn't interested in making a saccharine movie about hugging trees because that doesn't reflect the terror of his experience.
I see.
The mist, the city, the Leatherman, these are visual representations of the sudden, senseless cruelty of the universe. The stardust element is the resilience required to survive it. He is expressing a search for genuine meaning, but he is doing it through a highly specific, deliberately destabilizing aesthetic.
That actually makes a lot of sense. To express a fractured psyche, you kind of have to build a fractured world.
Exactly.
Which perfectly explains the geography of this movie.
Right.
The setting is a futuristic metropolis, but it's an impossible space. Like, they shot the film in Tokyo, which gives you that incredible hyper-saturated neon lighting that Refn is famous for.
Right.
But then they combine that footage with locations shot in Copenhagen.
Which completely subverts the visual expectation. Copenhagen brings this incredibly flat, gray, cold, European precision to the architecture. It's the absolute antithesis of that frantic Tokyo energy.
Yeah, it's like taking two pieces from completely different jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
Imagine your brain is expecting the chaotic, neon-drenched sensory overload of a cyberpunk Tokyo puzzle.
Right.
But suddenly the camera pans, and you are hit with this brutalist, unforgiving Scandinavian drama puzzle piece.
Yeah.
You forcefully weld them together, and technically the cardboard fits. The scenes match up. But when your eye tracks across the image, you get this profound sensory whiplash. Your brain immediately registers that something is deeply, unsettlingly wrong with the environment.
And that architectural dissonance is exactly how the film manifests its giallo influence long before anyone gets hurt. By building a city that feels subtly, structurally wrong, Refn makes you feel like the very arrangement of the physical world is diseased. And then you add the mist. The fog in this film isn't a weather event designed to limit visibility and create cheap jump scares. The mist acts as a porous border between reality and unreality. It rots the geography and makes the physical space feel, well, geographically haunted.
So when you build a city that is fundamentally broken, it attracts broken people.
Exactly.
And that is exactly who we follow into the fog.
Yeah.
First, we have Elle, played by Sophie Thatcher.
She's fantastic.
So good. If you've seen her in Yellow Jackets or the recent horror film Heretic, you know the exact energy she brings. The production notes highlight that she gives Elle this incredibly watchful, almost unbreakable quality. She is navigating this absolute horror show to find her missing father.
Yeah.
The mist has essentially externalized the void that was already inside her.
She's positioned as someone fully aware of the danger. She can feel the threat out there in the fog, the physical manifestation of loss, but she moves into it anyway. Her love for her father places her on a direct, unavoidable collision course with the entity hunting her.
And on the other side of that city, on his own collision course, is the American G.I, played by Charles Melton.
Yeah, what casting.
Anyone who saw his performance in May-December back in 2023 knows the profound depth he can access. Here, he is playing a desperate father plunging into literal hell to find his missing daughter. He brings a soldier's tactical certainty, but it's completely undermined by a father's total frantic desperation.
Which brings us to the entity they are both navigating around. The Leatherman.
Ugh. The Leatherman. Just reading the descriptions of this character in the Festival Dispatches gave me anxiety.
He is Refn's direct homage to the black-gloved killers of the classic Italian giallo films, but stripped of all humanity.
Right.
He's described as this heinous, shirtless flesh moving through the fog with terrifying efficiency. He doesn't sprint after his victims, he simply appears exactly where they are inevitably going. Reviewers on Letterboxd from the Cannes premiere kept describing his presence as a raw farm.
Okay, let's translate that for a second. For those who aren't fluent in, film talk, slang, and aura farm, is a character who doesn't have to say a single word or even do anything overt to completely dominate the energy of a room.
Exactly.
It's menaced through sheer gravitational presence rather than loud aggression.
Precisely. The horror comes from his stillness. He represents a total void where a human being should be. He is the physical embodiment of the mist's cruelty.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the detail from the Cannes leaks that literally forced me to reread the article 3 times.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Charles Melton plays the American G.I., frantically searching for his daughter. But Charles Melton also plays the Leatherman.
He does. The man tearing the city apart to save his daughter is played by the exact same actor who is playing the entity brutally stalking and erasing other women in the fog.
Okay, I have to push back on this, or at least try to untangle it, because this feels like a massive narrative trap.
Yeah.
Is this literal? Are we watching a Jekyll and Hyde scenario where the GI is sleepwalking through the mist and hunting people without realizing it? Or is this a visual metaphor, like masculine energy acting as both the ultimate protector and the ultimate destructive threat, simply wearing the same face?
That is the agonizing question at the center of the film, and the brutal reality is that Refn refuses to give you a definitive answer.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the connection remains permanently, painfully ambiguous, whether it is a literal psychological split or a formal visual rhyme about the duality of man. That unresolved tension is exactly where Refn wants you trapped. Melton's incredible physical stillness as an actor is weaponized to portray both the desperate protector and the emotionless killer. It forces the audience to constantly project their own fears and suspicions onto his performance.
Oh, man.
Every time he is on screen as the father, you are searching his eyes for the killer.
That is deeply stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Just the idea that the face of the person you are desperate to find, the person meant to protect you, could be the exact same face of the monster coming to destroy you. It's a brilliant concept, but it sounds exhausting to watch.
It is.
Which actually bridges perfectly into the mechanics of the movie's reception. Because that level of sheer, unresolvable ambiguity is exactly why this film is causing absolute chaos among critics right now.
Ambiguity of that magnitude always creates a dividing line. People want answers, especially in thrillers. And Refn amplifies that discomfort with the soundtrack. The score is composed by Pino Donaggio, who is practically the patron saint of the giallo score. He composed the music for Carrie, Don't Look Now, and Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill.
Which tells you immediately that this isn't modern jump scare horror music.
No, not at all.
The sources point out that Donaggio's music isn't there to spike your heart rate with a sudden crash of cymbals. The music signals horror by creating an atmosphere of deep unease. It's that creeping, skin-crawling feeling that something is wrong with the light itself, well before a monster ever steps out of the shadows.
Right.
Imagine a scene where a street lamp is just flickering in the fog, but the string section makes you feel like the flickering light is actively hostile.
What's fascinating here is how that immersive psychological dread interacts with an audience. It is an endurance test rather than a roller coaster ride. Not everyone wants to be submerged in that specific kind of oppressive atmosphere for 2 hours.
No, definitely not.
Which perfectly explains the extreme polarization in the reviews.
Oh, the reviews are completely unhinged. The Hollywood Reporter published a scathing piece calling the film agonizingly self-indulgent. Owen Glaberman at Variety completely dismissed it as a massive disaster, describing the viewing experience as being like David Lynch on bad acid.
Right.
Which, honestly, to a very specific subculture of moviegoers sounds like the highest possible endorsement, but he absolutely meant it as a fatal criticism.
Yet, while those massive legacy publications were tearing the film's ambiguity and pacing to shreds, the audience at the Cannes Film Festival premiere was on their feet, giving it a 12-minute standing ovation.
12 minutes.
12 minutes. You have to understand the physical reality of a 12-minute ovation. That is not polite, obligatory applause. That is a visceral, communal need to acknowledge that a piece of art has physically affected you, that it has left a mark.
So what do we do with that? You have a 12-minute standing ovation in one hand, representing pure cinematic reverence, and a 43% Rotten Tomatoes score in the other, representing critical exhaustion.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile those two realities before deciding if you're going to buy a ticket?
You reconcile it by accepting that Nicolas Winding Refn does not build films for consensus. This is a film that will either profoundly find you or it will violently repel you. You simply cannot know which side of that chasm you fall on until you are sitting in the dark theater, letting the mist roll over you. His most impactful work has always operated on this violent division.
It's true.
Only God Forgives was practically booed out of Cannes, yet became one of the most rigorously debated films of its decade. The Neon Demon was similarly dismissed by mainstream critics, but its cult following considers it a modern masterpiece. Her Private Hell is tracing that exact same chaotic trajectory.
The division is almost the point. It's a litmus test. But let's strip away the critical noise for a minute.
Okay.
Let's pull back from the incredible neon lighting, the jarring Tokyo-Copenhagen architecture, the killer in the mist, and the whole Rotten Tomatoes debate. When you get right down to the bedrock of the script, what is this deep dive actually about for you?
It brings us right back to the beginning. It brings us back to that near-death experience and back to the concept of stardust.
Yeah. Because when you look at Elle and you look at the GI's missing daughter, these are the exact types of women that the overarching systems of the world, whether that system is the literal suffocating mist or the Leatherman entity or just the generalized harshness of reality, tries to quietly erase.
Right.
They are the vulnerable ones that Dark is designed to swallow up without a trace.
But the core of Refn's new philosophy, the genuine truth he spent a decade trying to articulate after facing his own end, is the radical refusal to be erased.
Yeah.
Elle is terrified. She knows the mist is lethal. She knows there is a void out there hunting her, but she moves through the fog anyway toward the father she loves. The GI plunges into a literal neon hell for his child. They're clinging to that intrinsic worth, that cosmic stardust, both in themselves and in the people they are desperate to find.
It's about having the sheer irrational grit to keep moving toward what you love, even when the environment you have to walk through is the exact thing designed to destroy you. It's a surprisingly profound, beautiful message, wrapped in a truly punishing, terrifying package. July 24th is right around the corner, and when it finally hits theaters, it is going to be wild to see where the dust settles on this one.
Definitely.
So drop down into the comments when you see it, and let us know. Are you siding with the 12-minute Cannes ovation, or did that 43% Rotten Tomatoes score get it right?
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating conversation. The most interesting insights always come from the deepest divisions, you know?
They really do. We've talked so much today about that tagline, about the scientific and emotional reality that you are made of stardust, that you possess an intrinsic, unbreakable worth, no matter what kind of trauma or mist you find yourself wandering through. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over tonight, based on the brutal logic of Refn's world.
Okay.
You are made of stardust. That is true. It gives you value. But the terrifying truth of the mist is that the thing hunting you is made of stardust, too.
Oh, wow.
The mist itself doesn't care what you are made of. The universe doesn't care about your intrinsic worth. But Elle does. The GI does. Refn is betting that you will, too.